staying on the subject of music. It's festival season here in the UK, and the scene here is a magnet for music tourists from around the world. Last year, more than 19 million people travelled for gigs in the UK, either from other parts of the country or from outside of the country to go to a gig. That's an increase of a third. And while they did so, they spent £8 billion. Let's speak now to Tom Keall, who's Chief Executive of UK Music. Tom, quite a big increase in numbers last year. Is this still a kind of a COVID recovery phenomenon or something else happening here?
I think we saw good morning, and I think we saw a really successful last year. I mean, we had loads of really big events and shows. Obviously, Glastonbury is a regular fixture within the music calendar, but we have shows from people like Bruce Springsteen, Billy Joel, Harry Styles, Blur. So a really fantastic year, and I think there's a strong growth, and we'd like to see that sustained.
So music tourists is the term you're using to describe these people who travel for gigs. Are they more valuable to a local economy than a kind of a traditional tourist? Because you might have thought they might just come to town, stay in a hotel as cheap as they can, spend money at the gig, and maybe not so much in local businesses.
I think we've seen music tourists are very valuable. I think across the country, the figures that we released today have shown both a growth in London, but also the northeast and southwest. So across the country, we're seeing people increasingly travelling outside of their normal areas just to go to gigs and festivals. So it's a real profound moment, I think, for local industries, and actually shows you what great assets you have, whether it's a festival in your local area or a venue, just how potentially successful that can be. And so that generates money to the local economy that then can go back into the community and other aspects of life. So a real big asset if you have that.
And being Taylor Swift weaving her into every single story I can. It's a phenomenon I have heard associated with her, particularly her diehard fans coming from the US over here to Europe because they found that it was actually cheaper to see her over here. Is that something that's fed into your figures?
Certainly, I mean, the figures we released are from last year, but it's definitely a Taylor Swift effect that we're expecting. Last year, also, you had the Eurovision Song Contest in the UK with the Liverpool, and obviously the huge amount of people that then came over to the UK for that particular event as well. So the international dimension is huge to music tourism. So it's not just people travelling around the UK; it's also people coming from overseas for gigs and festivals.
One of the downsides that we've heard of, again in association with Taylor Swift gigs, is how much hotel prices can go up when there's a big show in town. Is that something that you'd be concerned might turn music tourists off? Have you got any message for the hotel industry to perhaps give bargain hunting music fans a bit of a break?
I mean, I think someone like Taylor Swift is a phenomenon, and there's obviously a huge kind of industry that goes behind her and the whole culture behind that. And so I wouldn't want to frighten too many hoteliers with actually one or two kind of huge exceptions. And I think actually one of the issues we kind of see slightly beneath the surface here is, yes, there's some really successful artists able to generate tours and generate something to drive these figures. That actually is an issue below that, and maybe some of the mid-range artists who potentially don't have quite the bandwidth. Actually, they're seeing some opportunities squeezed, whether that's around venues or actually festival closures. So although this statistics are very strong that we're reporting on today, we must not forget there are some fundamental challenges to the music industry too.
And what would you like to see, if anything, happen to promote this kind of tourism? Is it possible to promote it, or does that just depend on the type of gigs that are organised in various parts of the country?
I think we need to have a very defined export strategy. Obviously, we have a new government in the UK now, and with there's a real big opportunity to have a wider music strategy, just kind of looping in everything. We've got a huge asset with music. It generates things in terms of soft power. It's something that's very identifiable overseas. So making that more our export offer and how we promote ourselves across the world is something that should be quite fundamental.
Okay, Tom Keall, Chief Executive of UK Music. We shall leave it there. Hope you've got some good gigs coming up for yourself later in the summer. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Before I go, let's have a look at how the markets are trading. This is the picture in Asia. You can see there a reasonably mixed picture. The Nikkei in Tokyo just up by just a touch, and a similar decline there for the Hang Seng in Hong Kong. Of course, lots of political ramifications for them to digest over the last few days alone, with the current Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, seemingly anointed to run for the presidency and take on President Trump. Let's see how Wall Street ended the night last night. It was the first time that traders got to respond to the news that President Biden was stepping out of the race. The Dow climbed by 0.3%. The Nasdaq enjoying better gains, 1.6% higher. That's the latest price there of a barrel of light crude as well, down just a touch below the $80 per barrel mark.